Thank you, Mr. Chair. Director Coates, with regard to cyber, I fear that the phrase whole-of-government approach has become a catch-all for it's someone else's job. We hear this catch-all phrase over and over again. Saying whole-of-government approach is not a substitute for action, and it's not a substitute for a real cyber doctrine, something that could achieve deterrence. When are we going to expect an actual cyber plan from this administration?
I can't give you a specific date. I can only say that we will continue to provide as much information and intelligence that we can gather to the policymakers so that they can make this decision.
So, you know, I'd love to hear somebody say the buck stops here instead of whole-of-government approach. What have you personally done to either expedite this process or to at least create a sense of urgency in the White House?
I have daily and weekly interactions with the people at the White House, and we discuss any number of issues. It is clearly an issue for the National Security Agency and for the NSC at the White House and for others. So there are ongoing discussions, and it's part of the whole range of threats that we face. As I earlier have said, there has not been yet a formulation of a lead agency that would work with the Congress on legislative action and putting a policy in place relative to that. There are complicated issues here regarding retaliation and so forth that are being worked.
We're running out of time. Last week, I asked Admiral Rogers if our response to Russian cyber attacks has been adequate enough to change their behavior. He said that we had failed to change their calculus and that their behavior has not changed. Would you agree with his assessment?
I would agree with that.
Do you believe it's possible to change someone's behavior, particularly someone like Vladimir Putin, without imposing some sort of cost on them for their actions?
I believe that.
How should we impose those costs on Russia?
Well, that's the question, and the question is how do you assess the retaliation and the impact and what it might lead to? And I think that is the operative question that has to be addressed. I couldn't agree with you more.
Would sanctions be an appropriate response? Because this body passed a law nearly unanimously that required that the president sanction individuals with financial ties to Russia's defense and intelligence sectors, or at least waive sanctions by certifying that Russia has reduced their cyber attacks against the United States. Both of you told me a few weeks ago that the intelligence community is still seeing activity in the run-up to the 2018 elections. And I think your phrase, Director Coates, was the United States is under attack. So why on earth hasn't the administration found anyone to sanction?
As you've probably seen, 13 individuals have been named. The Treasury Secretary Mnuchin has indicated that very shortly he will be bringing out a list of sanctions on those individuals that have been complicit in this.
So you're talking about the 13 individuals who were indicted by the special counsel?
Correct. And this goes beyond that. This also goes to others. I don't know what names are on the list. We have provided intelligence information to the Department of Treasury for this determination, and I'm told it's coming soon.
So you were asked, make sure I get this right, to provide analysis to support the Treasury Department's decision?
I can't say that. Well, I don't know that there was a direction on that. All I do know is that we have been engaged in providing intelligence on this subject continuously.
When Treasury Department made their
agencies.
initial decision about their release of names, but they did not choose to sanction any individuals at that time, were you asked to provide analysis for them to be able to come up with that decision?
I would have to go back and just double check whether this was just part of our regular ongoing provision of information or whether there was a specific ask on this. I'd be happy to get back to you on that question.
Yeah, I would look forward to that. We've talked a lot about sanctions against Iran, a lot about sanctions against North Korea. It seems like there should be a focus on this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.